Okay, so welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a recap of The Passage, Season 1, Episode 3. That Never Should Have Happened to You. I think that's the name of it. Okay, so Brad and Amy, they're on their way to the facility. And Clark is having a flashback of when Babcock. So this episode is really a lot of it is about Babcock, her backstory, and how she arrived at the facility. Well, actually, how she went to prison, and how she ended up arriving at the facility. So Clark is having on the right there. Clark is having this flashback of when he first met and encountered Babcock, and he first encountered her when the guys who were supposed to transport her there, one of the guys, it was like 3 of them, one of the guys was like almost trying to rape her. I don't know what the hell this guy was doing. And so Clark shows up and obviously pulled a gun on the guy, like, what the hell are you doing? You were supposed to transport her to this location facility. And he ends up taking control of the situation, sends the guys off, and he just he stands there for a minute to kind of calm her down. And he starts having a conversation with her, just general, like, where you from, that whole thing. And so, sorry, Lent. And he takes her where she's supposed to go. So we go back to present day, and they are just pulling up at the facility. Amy and Brad are in the back, and he's talking to Amy, like, what is the plan? And she's like to get out of here. So what are you supposed to do? And she was going down a list of what he was teaching her. Don't panic, observe everything, that whole thing. So they get there, and of course immediately they separate them. So around this time, there's this meeting going on. They're having this meeting about the incident where the man was killed. And so, I think the guy's name is Greg, the kind of wimpy guy. His name is Greg. And so they saw Babcock kill the guy, and they was trying to understand, like, okay, so they saw him kick Greg's badge into the what they call it, a cage, but it's a cell, and he was able to retrieve his badge. She didn't attack him, but she attacked the other guy, and it was like, well, were you trying to figure out why? And so Greg was like, because he's an asshole, or he was an asshole, and even Dr. Jonas was like, he's always banging on the cages, he's just a jerk. And of course, when the doctor's like, well, no, they can't. They have the, mental capacity. At this point, the doctors are thinking that they have the mental capacity of a rock. Like, they're like normal human emotions, like anger, and because that's what they were trying to say. Oh, so you're trying to say this was revenge for him treating her, like, constantly fucking with her. And he was trying to say, well, no, they don't have that capability, that capacity anymore. And around this time, a guy comes in and saying that for Dr. Sykes, saying that you were needed upstairs for Amy. So they in the meeting, and she heads up, and then you flash to Amy. Amy is in there tearing the place up. She's screaming and get away from me and don't touch me and this whole situation's right. So Dr. Sykes walks in, and she puts her at ease. She's talking to her, trying to put her at ease, but Amy's street smart. She's listening to her, but she's like, bitch, I don't trust you, and I don't talk to him. I ain't trying to hear what you have to say. But she did say that she asked her, okay, so what would make you comfortable? And she was like, to have Brad here. So they're on their way to get Brad to bring him to be with Amy while they do, get her all prepped and ready to do this experiment. So they're watching the cameras, and they feed them through, there's this tube that goes into that's in each cell, and there's like this trough, so the blood comes down the tube into the trough, and they're like really eating it like animals. And so they realize, at least Dr. Jonas realized, okay, wait a minute, Babcock and Fanning, they're not eating. And so he thought that was curious. And he starts thinking, said, why won't people eat during dinner? And he's like, because they're talking. And so now he's thinking that, okay, his theory is that they're communicating with each other. They're having a conversation. So around this time, Brad, they're on the way to get Brad, and he's sitting there having a cup of coffee, and he's watching this news story, this fake news story that they put out about him, about how he was killed in the shootout in the police station, and how he was responsible for killing the officers. And he was basically like, I look pretty good for a dead guy. And so Clark walks in and, says, I'm going to take you to Amy. And he said, "You don't try." And he was like, "Well, don't try anything." Or he said, "Don't try to take me." And then Brad was like, "Don't blink." So on their way, they meet Sykes. And so, of course, Brad is asking questions like, "What is going on? What are you guys doing?" And so she explained to him about the flu and how Amy could be the catalyst for this vaccine they're trying to create, and the whole thing. And he eventually goes in to talk to Amy. So he's with Amy, and the doctor walks in with a syringe, and they're about to give her the shot. And so he's keep talking to her to keep her calm. And around this time, you can see Fanning. He senses something. So around this time, as soon as when Brad got back into the room, they had already chipped her. They had already put the chip in her neck. She was like, "What they said is to keep track of my vitals." But I think it's just in case you try to sneak me out. So, but around this time, you can see Fanning. He can sense that Amy is there, and the Greg, who's responsible for Fanning, Fanning is communicating with Greg, and Greg is basically like, "Well, what are you going to do to her?" And so basically, he knows now that Fanning wants Amy. And so during the conversation where Babcock and Fanning wasn't eating, they were talking. They were meeting the same way they did when Anthony had his dream. He went to the bar, the whole thing. And so they're conversating, and he knows that it's only a matter of time. They've decided to kill Babcock. And so he's like, "Well, tell him your story. This is what Fanning is saying to Babcock, to Greg." And so the next thing you know, you see Amy. She's all in Babcock's, and all in not Amy. Babcock is all in Clark's mind at this point. And he's getting flashbacks of her life. And so the first vision he gets is her as, I guess, a teenager, maybe young adult, and she is with her friends. And her dream was to be a makeup artist, and a movie makeup artist. And so they, her and her friend, they're kind of just joking around, and they go to this club. And this guy's kind of getting rough with her friend. So she ends up breaking the bottle and slicing the guy's arm up, and of course getting arrested. And so he flashes back to his time now. So he starts trying to figure out what's going on with him. Why is he all of a sudden having these thoughts about her, about Babcock? He's like, he's just like, he's confused. And so first time you see, so after they do the shot and the whole thing, after a while the nurse comes in to check Amy's vitals. And of course Brad is still there. They were playing cards or something. And so before the nurse walked in, she was asking him about, no, actually it was after because he was he told her that it was getting late and time to go to bed. She said that she could hear a guy in the next room, Anthony. And so he started flashing back. That was the last guy he brought before he got the assignment to get Amy, to go out and get Amy. And so he ends up getting her, tucked in for bed. And so they're asleep, and Brad wakes up, and Greg is in the room looking at Amy. And so of course Brad's like, what the fuck? What are you doing in here? What is going on? He was like, no, and so he goes and puts his code in the room and into the keypad to open the door. So of course Brad got the code, and he's like, got him all jammed up. Like, what are you doing? What is going on? He said, no, I just wanted to tell you about Fanning. At this point, he doesn't know anything about Fanning. Brad has never met Fanning. He said he's going to come for Amy, and you need to get her out of here. So of course he's trying to ask him, like, who's Fanning? What is going on? And of course it's around this time security, the officers came in and escorted Brad back into the room. Clark is having another flashback, and it's her mom. So it's her mom picks her up from the police station, and of course they're talking, and she's basically telling her that her dream of being this makeup artist is not gonna come true. How she doesn't have any follow through. Her mom is just a fucking bitch. Okay. And it's like, these are the kind of women that should be fucking sterilized. It's like, I mean, and it's like, you don't want to come down on them, like, I don't know. See, the thing is, because you don't know the mom's backstory, so you don't understand why she's so fucked up and such a bitch to her daughter. You don't really know. So, I mean, she's the bitch. She's just a bitch. And I'm just like, okay. And then as the story goes on, you'll know, I understand why. She's just shooting her down. And of course, Amy, you know, she's just trying to get out of that town. So, Amy is in her room and she's putting the money away. So she has this little thing where she's keeping her money because that's her get out of town money. So she can go and start her life. And so, knock on the door. It's mom's boyfriend, Dan. And so, of course, she cracks the door and she's trying to talk to him. He's made some comment about panties or something. He's just a pervert. He's the fucking disgusting bastard is what he is. And so, she ends up telling him to get out of her room and she slams the door in his face. Okay. And so, you realize that, he comes back to reality and he's actually in the room with Dr. Sykes, because of course Dr. Sykes and him are dating. And so she starts talking and she starts asking him if he's okay, and she was like, why? She's like, because you seem so distracted, and you know what's going on. She was like, is it Babcock? And you know, that whole thing. So I guess he's been telling her about the dreams that he's been having. And so back at the facility, they're doing a surprise room check. And so all the people have to come out of the rooms and they go in and they search to make sure they don't have any contraband. And so they took Amy to the bathroom and Brad's standing outside the room, and then he's noticed next door Anthony comes out of his room. And he was like, Anthony was like, isn't this ironic? And Brad was basically like, you know, I am sorry, I didn't know what was going on. And then he starts asking Anthony about Fanning. He was like, you know, he's Fanning. I think Fanning runs the place. Because at this point, Brad still hasn't seen Fanning either. I've seen him in person. So you know, I don't really know what's going on. Around this time, Amy is brought back, and they all sent back into their rooms. So, actually, no. Amy is into the room, and Clark comes by and said he wants to ask Brad to walk with him because he wants to talk to him. So they're walking and talking. And he starts asking Brad about questions because, of course, Brad has to do research on these people before he goes to talk to them, because to figure out the best way to kind of sell them on getting involved in this project. And so Clark starts asking him, was she trying to go be a makeup artist or something? And Brad was like, this is what you want to talk to me about? And so he was like, yeah, I think she said something about that. And he said, was there any sexual abuse or anything like that? And Brad is like, yeah, the stepfather, there was some conversation. He's like, what is going on? So he's now concerned. That's even add to his suspicion. Like, okay, Clark, you know, we've seen the worst that humans can do to each other. And the fact that you're this upset and freaked out about something, what the hell is going on? What is going on here? What is going on with Amy? Who is Dr. Fanning? And so forth. And this time, you know, Brad started getting a little hype. And so they got security to take him back to the room, take him back to his room. Around this time, Lila is calling around, and she's calling around to the prisons where these 12 inmates were taken from the facility. These 12 death row inmates were taken from various facilities, and of course she's getting people hanging up. And then there's one facility she called, and it was the facility where Shauna and Babcock stayed, where the woman was like, she didn't die here. Some agents came and took her away, and basically we don't know what the hell happened to her. Okay, so Jonas and Greg. So he kind of, Greg was coming down the hall, and Dr. Jonas stops him and starts asking him, because he's still trying to figure out if they're able to communicate with each other. Because remember, their understanding of how this whole virus works is that their cognitive abilities has been impacted, so they're not able to communicate with anyone in any capacity. And so, of course, So Greg starts telling him, yeah, you know, Dr. Fanning, he comes to me in my dreams, and he talks to me. And he's like, okay, so it's now confirmed suspicion that they're communicating with each other. That's why they weren't talking. So what's up with that? So you have Lila ends up running into I don't know if it was the reporter that ran the story about Brad being dead, but she basically Wolgast is not dead. He was taken by some guys. He didn't kill those cops. She started telling her about the information she got about the inmates, the death row inmates that have disappeared from these facilities, and nobody knows what happened to them. They didn't die at the facilities. And so she basically gave the reporter everything she could. And the reporter was basically like, you know, I'll look into it, but no promises. So they parted ways. Okay, so Brad is delayed. So Amy is asleep. Brad thought it was a good time. He can now leave the room. So he remembers the code, punches the code in, gets out of the room. He's walking. Ironically, he gets on the elevator with Greg, and Greg is like, because Greg is like a little puny thing. So the syringe, when the nurse came in to check Amy's vitals, he actually took a syringe out of that rolling cart that they have, and so he ends up injecting Greg on the elevator. Greg passes out. He uses Greg's badge to access 4B, which is where they said Fanning was. He gets in, and then he realized he's now in basically the dungeon where they're keeping all of these people. And so he finally sees Fanning, and Fanning, of course, is all fucked up. His face is all pale, he got veins, and his eyes all red and looking crazy. And then around this time, Dr. Jonas walks in. It's like, okay, well, I guess now we need to have a conversation. And so he disabled the security system, so it would give them a little bit of time to talk to each other before the people came downstairs to take Brad away. And so Brad is looking around. He's like, I brought all these people here. What the hell is going on? And so they're talking. And Dr. Jonas explaining to Brad the reason for the program again. So basically much of what Dr. Sykes was saying. And so Lila, she goes into a hotel and find out that Lacey didn't die. I thought she was dead. Lacey didn't die. Lacey's in the hotel, and she got her whole artillery all on the bed. She got her guns cocked and ready to go. She's putting the bullets in. She was like, and Lila was like, is that a good idea with the painkillers? And Lacey was like, I didn't take the painkillers. I like to feel everything. And so around this time, Lila gets a phone call. It's the reporter saying that there are a lot of holes in your story, but I think there's something here. I'll be in touch. So Clark has gone to get Babcock. They've decided to kill her, and so they gassed her, which I don't know, caused some kind of fit. She's like foaming at the mouth, so they were able to restrain her, take her to another room where they put her in this concealed room, climate control glass something other that the sunshine, they were able to just turn the lights on that burns them. I guess it kind of mimics the effects of the sun because they're vampires. And so he turns the thing on, and so she's screaming, of course, because it's burning her skin, and she's still in his head. And so he has another flashback of now we find out how she ended up on death row. So she gets home and she goes in to put her money away, and she realizes that all her goddamn money is gone. Now, granted, this is money she's stolen from other people, but she realized all her money is gone. So she goes into the kitchen to confront, because her mother and Dan was in the kitchen, and she went to confront them. Like, she basically went at Dan, like, where the fuck is my money? I know you took it. And first he said he didn't. And then she was like, she's like, you're a bastard, where's my goddamn money? And then he says, I needed it. So he just took her goddamn money and spent it on whatever. And so the mom kind of was like, okay, Brad, Dan, go into the living room, whatever. And Shauna, go take a walk. I said, I don't want to take a walk. He took my money, And so the mom, she starts telling the mom, she finally tells the mom, like, the mom was like, well, he's a good guy. And of course, Shauna's sitting there and she starts crying. She's like, Mom, do you really believe that? Do you really believe that? And the mom didn't say anything. And then she was like, I don't know why there's so much damn lint. The mom, she was like, Mom, he's a rapist. And there was no emotion. The mom was still chopping up the, celery, whatever the hell she was chopping up. So, did you hear what I said? He's a rapist. He raped me from this age to this age. He would come into my room. And then she realized that her mom knew the whole time. And she was like, Mom, you knew the whole time. You promised. She's crying. Of course, she's emotional. You promised that you would always protect me, and you didn't, and you knew. And she was like, the mom was like, he's my man, or something. She said something crazy. She said that he's a pussycat. You could have fought him off. You could have said no. And before you knew it, that knife was in her hand, and it was in her mother's goddamn stomach. So she stabs her mom. Mom dead on the floor in the kitchen, and then she walks down the hall, and we just assume that she fucked Dan up too. So she was on death row for killing the mom and the boyfriend, because the boyfriend was a goddamn rapist, and the mom knew about it and let the shit happen for years. So that did something to Clark, and he ends up stopping the process of killing her. That was fucked up. So Brad is taken back to the room, and he is reassuring us, Amy, oh no, there are no monsters under the bed. Just going back to sleep. Everything is off. Everything is fine. And he obviously lays down to go to bed. And then next thing you know, he wakes up, he hears something, wakes up, and he walks out into the hall, and this is where he meets Fanning. And Fanning basically was like, you know what, Brad, just stay, don't get in my way. And that was basically it. And Brad woke up, and that's how this episode ended. So that was Shauna Babcock's story. That was fucked up. Okay, but that's how this episode ended, and I'm going to end this here, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.